welcome to the home of Corinthians in Galway. We're back here in the Skeff, where we're going to be talking about what's been an interesting couple of weeks for our first team. We're also going to maybe start a bit of a debate, because before Christmas we had the team of the 70s. A little bit down the line later this year we'll be talking about the team of the 80s, but the 80s was a significant decade in the history of the club. We had the team winning the All-Ireland, we had the growth of underage in the club, the new clubhouse. There was a lot that went on in those 10 years, and I've got two perfect men to talk to about that. But first of all, to the man my direct left is Mark Boyle, our captain. And Boyle, first of all, I have to talk about that win against Dungannon. 38 points without reply after what happened the week before against Rainey. That was a great comeback.
Yeah, delighted. I'm usually not too happy after games, but really happy that to nail them in the end. Very nice as well. Look, they were missing a few players, we're aware of that, but last season we lost one game, we lost another one, we kept kind of downward spiral kind of thing. It's nice to kind of bounce back with a good win. Yeah.
And you told me actually after, because a couple of weeks ago, the one thing we'd always seem to have after Christmas was a little bit of a slump, but to come back with a win, then a defeat, but back with another win again, you're back to third. The gap is closing on the top two. The semi-final place in the league is almost secure. You know, it has the team in a really good place compared to previous years.
Yeah, I think big part of that are kind of the squad depth this year. You kind of last year same team each week. It even showed on the weekend. Like Ushi Michelle came in first game in 2 years, did really well. There's a lot of competition for places, so you kind of have to play well as a team, or you're not going to get picked the following week. So
and James Nicholson at full back. Warren Burke had done a great job in the couple of weeks previous to that. So again, you're talking about strength and depth, and there seems to be plenty of it.
Yeah, Burke, yeah, was fluid. He's pretty unlucky to get let go, but he went in and played well for the 20s the following week. It just shows all three squads were all kind of helping each other out. Obviously having the likes of James come back is a big help as well, but again, it's a lot of competition there.
And speaking of which, you know, we have the seconds who are, you know, on the cusp. We don't know exactly where they're going to go as regards the league is concerned yet, but they're very close. The 20s are just remarkable. I mean, they have not lost a game in the JP Flanagan League all season, and they put up 81 points against Wanderers. Yeah. I mean, that is just out of this world stuff. This is the kind of stuff you have to pinch yourself and realise, wow, this is really good.
When you look at it like that and you say it like that, it is very good. But as I said probably a few weeks ago, you just have to keep the head down and keep going. That lull, in my head, it's always one step away from us, so it's very good, but to keep the head down and keep kind of training hard and playing well.
And does that lead to a bit of a bounce then with the lads going into training as well, especially when you come up against, I mean, it's hard to believe, 38 points against Dungannon, who are a pretty decent side. They were only, you know, a few points off. I think they were in 5th in the table. So, you know, you send a major message out as well to the rest of the league. Estonians, you know, we kind of leave them as they are now, because it's very hard that they'll be caught, but it makes things very tight around the rest of the other spots. So by doing that, you've sent a message to the other teams.
Yeah, I would say we have. Again, we knew what we're capable of, and after Rainey we had a few strong chats, and one thing we kind of focused on was it got all a bit serious and we were probably just a bit stressed and tense. We just went back to kind of enjoying it and going and playing, and if we made a few mistakes, so be it. I think that really kind of freed us up to go play like we can. We know what we can do. It's just going, relaxing and going and doing it.
And you know, the influence of the coaching staff, you know, Michael, the director of rugby, the rest of the guys involved, you know, they're adding an element to it as well. Obviously they're your coaches, but there seems to be a bit of a smile in your faces when you play now, and that's something that's very important, especially when we get to this stage of the season.
Exactly, just keep enjoying it. We're here to enjoy it, and we won on Saturday, the seconds won, and we had a good few points on Saturday night. It all matters, again, it's all for fun, and I think last year we were learning to go, but it all got so serious and we had to win and we had to do this. It's just getting back to enjoying playing rugby and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, your dad was a very happy man last time I was talking to him.
Yeah, he's a good former.
He's a great follower, isn't he? I mean, he's everything.
Yeah, from day one he just loved the club, and same himself, he just absolutely loved it. He met Zach and Bomber Senior and all the characters, and he just, like myself, felt at home in Corinthians from day one.
Yeah, it was a great conversation in the clubhouse. You missed it, but it was mighty crack, I can promise you this. Finally, just before we leave this section of it, there are some really big games to come now over the next number of weeks, and this is where support is crucial, and this is where we always try and get as many people down to Corinthian Park as possible to Rory Yan, because they do make a difference.
100%. I think that played 5:30 there on the weekend, or 5 o'clock, whatever it was. Like, when you're running out of the big crowd there, it does make a big difference. So hopefully more the same going forward, and hopefully we keep playing like we did last week.
Yep, and hopefully we find ourselves in the semi-final spot, and God knows what happens after that. Mark likes a minute. Now, Brian Murphy, Tom McDonough. I mentioned in my introduction about the 80s being such a crucial time regarding the club. It was a fascinating time for rugby in the province. You know, you were kind of, the clubhouse was now coming into it, Clonaconian was now coming into it. Brian, I'll start with yourself. What are your memories of that decade? And don't say you're too old to remember, because I know you're not.
Well, I was thinking the other night, it's shocking to say that it's nearly 40 years. When we were discussing this at the weekend, what we were doing, I was talking to Kieran Brown, who was involved in the All-Ireland winning team in 85, and they were saying, really, we should have a 40-year and a reunion for it. Now, I didn't play in that year, but as I said, I came out of school in 82, and the way Corinthians were at that stage, you went straight into under 20. Now, it's hard to imagine that 40 years ago in Connacht there was a full operating under 20 league of rugby, and we were league champions 3 years in a row, that under 20s team. We were blessed with the talent that we had that came out of school at the time. We had the likes of Tommy Keneally, Joey Malbrough, Kieran Brown, myself, Henry O'Toole, Joe Gorham. All these players went on to play senior rugby, and it was really like a situation of a perfect storm. We had a team coming out of the late 70s and 80s that had won 6 Connacht leagues in a row. They'd won Glyn Cups in a row. They had, again, there was no Connacht professional team at the time, so Corinthians senior team at that time had 6 or 7 Connacht interprovincial players playing for them, the likes of Fintan O'Flynn, Jareth O'Connell, Declan Graney, Kieran Smith. It was just there's so many of them to name, but so we had a really, really competitive senior squad at that stage, and and everybody wanted, it was hard to get into it. There was a lot of very good players playing junior, a lot of good players. I played thirds, and that's the way it was. You came into a very competitive, but we were probably one of the last teams that were involved in Ardnacraig. And I said, for a lot of people that don't know, Ardnacraig was just up there in College Road. It was a bit of a, I don't know, is it famous or infamous it was. It was a hard place to get past and get home out of. But it was, it was considered a huge gamble at the time for Corinthians to move out to Clonaconian. I mean, we used to literally meet outside here at the Skeff. Whoever had a car would pick people up, and you'd go out to Clonaconian, but there was no showers out there at that stage or anything. You'd be covered in mud, come back in the cars and have a shower in Ardnacraig, and as I said, when we came in there was no real, it was only the start of youth rugby. It was just starting to take off at that stage. I actually travelled to Lorient, believe it or not, in, I'd say it was 1979 with Corinthians as an under 16, and that was one way that kind of brought a lot of players, youth players, into the club, as I said, and it really took off from there. But as I said, the work that had been done in the previous years, as I said, in the 70s and into the early 80s, there were so many stalwarts and so many players there that we looked up to. It was a great time, an exciting time to be part of the club.
And Tom, being part of that particular club was, obviously there was the identity of being a Corinthian, one that had been in the go since 1932. But this was a special era because the game was changing. More people wanted to play. Obviously Ireland had won the Triple Crowns in 82 and 85, so you had more watching it on television. They wanted to play rugby, they wanted to go to Corinthians, and it all snowballed into what we have today as the present club. But it was your generation that made it so.
Well, we'd like to think we had something to do with it, all right, yeah. But like Brian, I can't believe it's 40 years ago. But anyway, it was, there was a lot of, the likes of, a very, very stable team there with Jimmy Glynn and John Conlon and the Rutmers and Mike Connolly and then you had Iggy, Pat Constantine, and of course Stuart Baker. It was very, very tight pack, and the backs, the backs were absolutely fantastic. All we had to do really was to get them both.
Let's talk about 85 and that win, that All-Ireland win. Yeah. That was significant on so many levels. Now I'm open to correction, and you can correct me, but I think it was the first time a Connacht club had done it, and you went and did it the hard way. Having to go down to the Lions' Den to do so.
That's right.
Now, I mean, that put Corinthians not just on the Connacht map, but on the national map, because let's be honest here, Connacht rugby was probably looked at as the very poor relation of the other three, and for a Connacht club to go and do that was unheard of.
Well, it was unheard of, and we didn't get any. We very little recognition for it at the end of the day. But the core of that team were together in the 70s. Like, don't forget that team had 6 senior Connacht Senior Leagues in a row and 3 Connacht Senior Cups in that period. So like, it was a very settled team, and we were used to winning, and that was the team that got us there. And then there was other people brought in for the finals and that, and it was a big upset for sure, yeah. But it was wonderful for the club.
And how important was it overall for the club to wake up the following morning and go, we're All Ireland champions?
Well, it was such an important time in the whole club, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of just put the cream in it. Like, we were moving to Clonacony, and we had been in Northern Craig before that. We were here in the Skeff, do you know what I mean? And before that, I think the first few meetings were held in Cullinan's pub, do you know what I mean? Like, so some past pupils from the Bish that started up, and the first year that started, and this is a bit of information for you, the first year that the club was formed, they won the Connacht Senior Cup. Like Harry Warner was one of the founder members. But like, in that time, then we had, it wasn't all really about the rugby. There was a really hardcore of people at the back of the club. The likes of the Cassidys, Brinton and Hurley, and of course Thoric played for us. And you had Conor Connolly, Matt Hackett, Tony Brown, Tony Hogan. You know what I mean? There was so many people there who actually, and of course Tommy Greeley, you know what I mean? He was a big influence in it as well. And to put together, you know what I mean? It was very hard to leave Ordner Craig, and I remember the EGM very well, and it was touch and go really. There was a lot of people.
Was there a lot of?
Oh, there was. Yeah, there was. It was a very. I can still remember that meeting, and and thanks be to God, we came up with the right solution there, and we just decided to go out, and we were out there then for 3 or 4 years with a CA container, togging out in it, no showers, no nothing, while the pitch was being developed. You know what I mean? We all got our slots for picking stones out of the pitch. The amount of work that went into it. Even here's a good one for you. The conifers that are down the back of the third pitch there. Well, they all started their life in Brendan Cassidy's backyard, and that's where they were growing. So, like, you know what I mean? Everybody was involved in it.
And that's the club mentality that
club
Corinthians have always tried to encourage throughout the years.
Yeah, yeah. The other things that was in that time was a fantastic ladies committee who did all the cooking and fed all the teams. You know what I mean? Like, all the players' wives were involved in that, girlfriends, and it was unbelievable, really. You know what I mean? The amount of work that was real solid, homely club.
How important was it to actually finally go into the clubhouse, everything in place, and just have the sense we're home?
Yeah, every time I go in the club, to be quite honest, I get a sense of pleasure out of it, because I understand the amount of work that went into it, from committees all the way up along, not even this committee and committees before it. It's gone back 40 years. Do you know what I mean? It was a huge time for us.
Now, can we just talk briefly about the underage? Brian, you touched on it. I know my own memories of underage. 1988, it was starting under 16. There was no 14s, 12s, or anything like that. You were lucky if you had an 18s competition. Yeah. Corinthians were very much to the forefront of those underage competitions at the beginning, and dare I say it, they brought other clubs along with them. Such was the standard. Those became the senior players of the future, became the committee players, committee members, and members of the senior committee. It's where development starts, really, isn't it? And now we look at what's happening now with under sixes talking out on Saturday morning.
Well, I think it was all part and parcel of, you know what I mean, in Ordner Craig, there just weren't the facilities there to entertain having kids there. I mean, to say the showers were basic. I mean, anybody driving a Lockatall, you could look in and see you having a shower, like, and it was a hose, there might even a nozzle on it, and if you got hot water, you were blessed. Like, I mean, it was just, it served a purpose, but it was very basic in a lot of ways. So, until we moved to the new base, the ideas were there to develop youth, because rugby was very popular in the city. Now there weren't a huge amount of schools, but I mean, if the Bish played the Jazz, and the way in the days was that if you played for the Jazz, you went to Galway Regions. If you played for the Bish, you went to Corinthians. There was no questions. That's just the way it was. And as I said, when I won the Schools Cup with Corinthians in '81, and it was Pat Considine, who was a stalwart of the senior team inside, he coached us, and that's the way it was done. Like that, they would come in. So as I said, your decision was made that you'd go straight for your club was already decided for you. So the drive was there when we finally got out to Cloonacorny and got a clubhouse built. And there was a fabulous opening day out there. They played a Connacht team of stars. There was Irish internationals and everything played, and it was a huge day. But it then gave the facilities and the momentum then to say how important it was to start your youths and eventually the minis and drive it on forward since there. And it's been, I've been involved in the youth scene. Okay, I'm involved in the senior setup for the last 5 or 6 years, but 20 something years before that straight just doing youth rugby. And it really is the lifeblood of the club, the minis and youths and the girls. Every part of it now is just so, and we can see it now. The feeding, the feeder the whole way up along. Our 20s are now so strong, and they're feeding our juniors and our seniors and our thirds. And it's just fabulous to see, to be honest with you.
And Tom, it moved. I think there was the realization that underage feeds a club. It inspires younger members to be part of it, and it just carries on that way. And we are blowing the Corinthians trumpet, and we've got every right to, in the sense that those guys, because he had the facility now out in Cloonacorny, he could do it. He could bring as many young players out as he wanted to, and then their younger brothers wanted to get involved, and then as time went on, of course, the girls got involved. This is what was all
well, at the time, you also have to remember that the parents of those children that came out, they were absolutely fantastic, because they got involved as well, because their own kids were playing, and that was really that's what kept it going, was because we wouldn't have enough coaches for it. And the same thing is happening now, and you have the ladies section, and that's doing extremely well, and I think long may it last. It's brilliant to see it,
And by the way, just to mention, we'll be talking about the under-18 girls in a little while, because that was one of the performances of the weekend in winning the under-18 league. But that's for a little while. I want to go back to the 80s very briefly again. Does it sink in that it's 40 years, and what is going to be the plan? Are we going to do something
look in the mirror? And we were literally only talking about this on Saturday, as I said, because there was a lot of with past presidents and things out there with the President's Day on Saturday, and it just with a little bit of lubrication in the brain, there was people talking we should do something next year to try and get as many of the people who were involved on that day back together for some sort of a reunion next year. Be at the end of this year. I'm not sure the exact date of it, but I think there's an appetite there to do something, because as I said, there was a big squad involved in that day. Some of them have drifted away from the club, but they'll always be Corinthians, and it would be nice to get some of them back in. And as I said, a lot of them played on. Obviously, as I said there was a mixture that team in that won the All-Ireland was a mixture of the old heads that were literally coming to the end of their careers, and you had the new blood coming through, and that new blood carried through to the start of the likes of Noel Mannion came in, and Declan Graney, guys got internationals, Henry O'Toole, guys that were stalwarts for Connacht, and that went on to the development of the team that went into the AIL at the start of the AIL in the early 90s when it kicked off. So it was a huge, and as I said, I think because the team that came up from the Tom's era came up was so strong and so competitive that it drove any player who wanted to be part of that. There was a very high bar to set to achieve it, to get in there. And because, as I said, there was no Connacht professional league, Connacht played the Inter-Pros every year and a couple of friendlies against the Army. That was kind of it. So you had Connacht players, you had the best players in the province available to you 90% of the time. So we played a lot of friendlies in those days, or challenge matches they were called, And but as I said, it is, the core that was there, drove everything forward. I think the standards that these guys had set, their performances, winning leagues, winning cups, that's what drove the younger crowd coming in. That's what was expected of you. It wasn't just take it easy.
So Tom, are you going to start organising something?
Oh, I would definitely be willing to help out in it. Yes, I think it'd be a good idea.
I think it'd be a good
idea. We should celebrate.
I think
absolutely.
So.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because, some of the guys have passed on now, but for the people that are left, and I also think it would be a great idea for a fundraiser. Sure, Captain there might be able to. She's very good at the fundraisers.
It's all possible. And
Oh,
by the way,
but I would definitely roll in behind it. Yeah.
we don't have enough time to talk about the debate for the team of the 80s because that would be another programme and then some. But later on, as we move on towards the end of the season, I have a feeling that might raise its head. But Mark, just last question to you. This is really you've got the weekend off, so what's the plan? Are you going to just do anything, or is it just a case of get the head down again? Because, like I said, you've got some big ones coming up, and of course that game against the Estonians will be pretty much a cup final.
Yeah, rest and recover this week, just enjoy the week off. It's kind of a lot more spread out now, so get you out for the weekend, get back on Tuesday, we train during the week, and get back on the horse, as I said. Keep enjoying it and get back training Tuesday and back on the horse soon.
It's going to be some few weeks, by the way, for if you want to keep an eye out on it, keep an eye on our app. Every single match report is there, fixtures, you name it, it's all there, and this is going to be a fun couple of months between now and the end of the season. You won't want to miss an absolute beat. Thanks to Mark, thanks to Brian and Tom, and that's our look at the senior side of things here in Corinthians. We're coming to you from the Skeff, of course, beautiful surroundings that are here, but we have still got a little bit to do regarding underage because as I mentioned in passing, it has been some weekend. We had teams in league finals across the board. In fact, we've had 4 teams in league finals and maybe even 5. John Delaney and Catherine will actually tell us more about that in a couple of minutes time, but for now that's where we will leave it. Thanks indeed for your company. We'll be right back.